On the anniversary towers, let's have a conversation in studio. So we have Jack Tuma, former ECK commissioner, in studio. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Okello Nyando, member of parliament. Thank you, sir, for making time for a news center this morning.
Thank you.
Then we also have Joe Mutambo, who is a former Mwingi Central member of parliament. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. So, Jared, let me begin this conversation with you. We're talking about this protest that is meant to force the resignation of Electoral Commission Chief Executive Ezra Chiloba and other officials. And the question is, IEBC actually requested NASA not to go on with this protest until you have your meeting tomorrow. So what necessitated this particular protest today? Why did it have to be today?
Thank you, Linda. Allow me firstly to address something that you're yet to confirm. That,
could we confirm it first?
That the former Prime Minister's security, together with the former Vice President, Kalonzo Musyoka, have been withdrawn.
Yeah.
I want to believe that that is just propaganda, because Raila's security and that of Kalonzo Musyoka is not a donation or charity from Jubilee. It is a matter of right. Kalonzo Musyoka is a man of high standing, both locally and abroad, and we know the participatory role he has consistently played to enhance peace and stability within the African continent, up to and including the diplomatic shuttle that he employed to get Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto from the shackles of ICC.
Diplomacy, okay.
Yeah, so these are not small men. But let me still hope that it is just propaganda.
That's from Italy, you know.
Yes, but again, you know, Jubilee has consistently showcased intolerance of monumental proportion to those who on the other side of the political divide. But we hope that sense will prevail, if at all this will be confirmed, and that they will move along the confines of the Constitution to guarantee security to these people. If anything would happen to either of them, then they can just imagine what will happen within this country, beyond conjecture. But coming to your question, yes, it is true that letters were written back and forth, firstly demanding resignation of those who bungled the presidential election. We will not sit pretty and say that nothing wrong happened. Then why are we in this state? The Supreme Court's finding was quite categorical that irregularities and illegalities were perpetuated by electoral officials that therefore necessitated, vacation of that particular election. So we will not be assuming that IEBC in its current form is still very prepared and ready to conduct another round of election. You do not give a test drive on such an important undertaking as presidential election in Kenya. You will be told, as a matter of fact, that over 300 billion shillings from the Nairobi Stock Exchange has been lost just because of the grandstanding that the country is subjected to. So what we are saying, yes, they did write a letter to us yesterday asking us to give them a little more time to put their house in order in respect of our meeting that is meant to happen tomorrow. But we are saying some of the officials who are meant to be part of the deliberations are the ones we are saying must go home. So we will not be playing foolhardy and allowing the same culprits to sit with us in a meeting. That is number one. Number two, of course, they called us for a meeting about a fortnight ago, together with the other coalition, which I'm at pains to remember its name. But, you know, we were there on time. They took almost half a day. They never showed up. When we ran out of patience, which is human, to go, then the other coalition shows up with its deputy president. So, I mean, these are games that we wouldn't wish to subject Kenyans to.
So the main reason why you did not heed to their plea to postpone this protest is because some of the individuals who are supposed to be part of that meeting are the individuals you want to go home.
We want them to go home.
Mashima?
I'm surprised.
Why?
After listening to my friend here. If somebody calls you for a dialogue, do you give condition? If you really mean war, I'm surprised because they are still insisting that the same people who are calling us are the same people we want them to go. So, if I've called you to come and talk to me and tell me the reason why I should go, why should you go ahead and hold demos against me? Why, if you are genuine enough and you really value and care for this country, and you are talking in the spirit of the same constitution which you are alluding to, why don't you sit down with me and tell me on my face, the reason why I want you to go, it is because 1, 2, 3. We have heard the case. We listened to the judges, both those who descended and those who are for the applicants. We never heard anybody being mentioned. This issue of the IBC officials being crucified is coming from NASA. Why? Because they were not happy with the election. The judge or the ruling did not say that so and so committed this offense. And the spirit of the Constitution gives every person a right to be heard.
Okay.
These guys, they do not want to hear nobody. They pretend to be holier than thou, that they do not make any mistake, and anybody who makes a mistake should exist from this country. Not only the office they sit on. What the message they are trying to send is that if you are found either guilty or you have found mishandled something or you have done something wrong, you are not supposed to exist. This is the message they are saying. So on my opinion,
yes.
I don't think they are for the good of this country. They respect the rule of law. They respect the Kenyans. And they have any faith with any Kenyan.
So from where
before you bring in my brother.
From where you sit, NASA have no genuine concerns that they should put across.
They don't have.
Despite the fact that the Supreme Court said...
And I will be very happy if I get an inch of a genuine concern they are raising.
It doesn't concern you that the Supreme Court said there were illegalities and irregularities that happened?
Fair enough. There were irregularities. So what happened? There is a very straightforward court order which is ordering the same IBC. The men and women who sat in that court by the virtue of being judges, they were wise enough to know that if these people are the one who messed up, they should go. They could have given those orders. They never gave those orders.
Well, allow me very fast to firstly say that caring for the country doesn't mean talking to Chiloba. Okay? In fact, talking to Chiloba is the flip side of caring for this country. So my brother should know that. Number two, they are fond of saying that the Supreme Court did not place names on particular culprits. We have done that on behalf of the court. We have said illegalities were committed, irregularities were committed, people given the mandate to conduct free and fair elections bungled the entire process. And we are saying with certainty, and remember that even when the matter was still pending before the Supreme Court, an interlocutory application was made by NASA to have the servers be opened. 21 orders were therefore given in tandem with our prayers to have the servers opened. What happened? Out of 21 orders, only 7 were respected. And you can't say that, you know, the ICT director who then negated his cardinal responsibility on this fundamental request isn't part of the bungling process. He is. So what we are saying is, yes, the Supreme Court did not, and there was a very good reason as to why Supreme Court did not mention names. Yeah. You remember, and he has alluded to it, Article 50 of the Kenyan Constitution, 2010, says that you do not condemn somebody unheard. Everybody has a right to a fair hearing, okay? And remember, the people we have categorically mentioned, such as Chiloba, the commissioners, Muhati and company, Davis Chirchir, and these other people who were in the business of bungling Kenya's election, were not respondents in the Supreme Court matter. What therefore this means is that they have to be given an elaborate process where they also respond to the allegations leveled against them.
But you guys want them out of office before they even get a chance to respond.
Well, that has been the norm here in this country. Once you are mentioned, even cabinet secretary,
that doesn't make it right,
cabinet secretaries have stepped aside in this country just
if
because
he's
they have
talking
been
about
mentioned.
people
So
being
who is
Okay.
Chiloba?
Okay.
Who
Ambassador.
is
Right.
Bulai?
Let me.
Praxidis?
Linda,
I mean,
every time I've been in the studio, I've been talking as Awanjiku.
Please do.
And where we are,
Yeah.
the two big parties, Kenya as a country, we're in a deep hole. And the two parties are continuing to dig that hole when Wanjiku is struggling to get out of this hole. Where did the rain start beating us? Let's go back to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said that there were irregularities and illegalities. I do remember very well, immediately after that, we got a press conference by Chepkati, who admitted what the Supreme Court had said and said that he was going to take action.
correct.
A little after that, Chepkati, the leaked letter that we all saw,
The memo.
the memo, indicated that he had taken action as an administrator of IEBC to get off some people. By the way, he did not sack them. He merely suspended them as the boss of the institution to allow an investigation to go up. Somehow, he moved on, and it looks to me that the differences within the IEBC itself must have been remotely sponsored from outside. So what am I saying? I'm saying IEBC is finding itself in very serious problems because I think it has admitted itself to be controlled from outside. If we left Chepkati to proceed as the as the chairman of IEBC to take disciplinary action, whatever it was, to get these people to be out, perhaps we would not have gotten where we are. We are where we are because he made that decision, he rescinded it, and later on again there's another memo which has leaked, and of course Chepkati has not come out to deny that he issued the memo, and again it is causing problems. Why are the two political parties that we rely on taking so much interest in interfering in the internal administration of an institution that the Constitution allows that it runs as independent? So until such a time as we get IEBC to make a decision, and one of those decisions, as I have stated, was that Chepkati was actually taking action against some officers that had been indicted. That had that been taken, I'm sure perhaps we would not be where we are.
So basically
now,
the problem, go on.
Now, the question of the judge not mentioning some names. I'm not a legal man, but I think I've gone to school well enough to be told that that was an electoral court.
Correct. Not a criminal
It was
court.
not a criminal court.
Correct.
And it could have been questioned had it gone ahead to say so and so, so and so actually committed this offense. So it is the responsibility of the Director of Public Prosecution, is the responsibility of Chepkati as the chairman of IEBC to come up and say, I have done some internal investigation and I have found so and so. I suspect, mind you, not that he had found them guilty, until such a time as the investigation will have been done and they have come up to say, this one did this and this one did that.
All right, so let's get some reactions from Kisumu, then we'll still go on with this conversation. Rashid Ronald is in Kisumu, speaking to the residents there on their thoughts about this particular protest that has been organized by INASA to sort of try and get some IEBC officials out of office. Rashid, good morning. What are the residents in Kisumu saying?
Yeah, good morning, Linda Ogutu. Of course, I'm exactly along Jaramogi Odinga Road in Kisumu. And of course, as you can see, things are moving on well in Kisumu. It's business as usual, at least for now. But then, Linda, the conversation is there amongst the people around. You walk around the streets and people are talking about the impending mass actions along the streets of Kisumu. And of course, what I'll say is just a matter of time And of course, you might be able to see people around the streets taking part in that mass action. Linda, I'm saying so because this Kisumu is the epicenter of the opposition. Of course, bearing in mind that Raila Amolo Odinga, the NASA presidential candidate, hailed from this region. This is political bedrock. And of course, whatever he says to the people here is like law. And of course, remember when the judgment was released or made by the Supreme Court the other time, of course, you saw the magnitude of the celebrations here in Kisumu. People celebrated here and there, running up and down and saying, oh yes, we've won round one. And of course, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And of course, when Raila Odinga now comes and tells them, no, we can't go to the election until this and this is done, that so and so, or IEBC is out of office. And of course, they buy that idea. So it's just a matter of time. And of course, let me speak to one of the residents here of Kisumu. Welcome to KTN News. Of course, there are calls for people to go, to go for that mass action. What's your take on that, especially as a resident of Kisumu?
Oh,
You can look at the camera there.
okay. That for the protest that was to begin today, we had there were some rumors which was spread that the protest is to be continued on Thursday, but we were ready to protest today because it is there in the Constitution, and it will show that we don't want people who will disrupt the election of Kenya, so that our rights to be respected.
Yes, of course, Linda, you've heard as one of the residents of Kisumu saying it's their right to demonstrate, their right to participate in mass action. Of course, there is another resident of Kisumu. What's your take on the calls for you to go for mass action?
Okay, what I can say, to demonstrate peacefully. As long as they give us, it's our right. To demonstrate peacefully, bila kusumbuana na watu, na pia sisi tusumbuliwe. It's our right. Na vile tunataka ABC, Chebukati, Chiloba, na hiyo timu yake waishie, ndio tunataka to demonstrate peacefully, bila kusumbuana na mtu yote. Yeah.
Yes, Linda, you've heard it. They're saying that they will demonstrate the peaceful demonstrants here. And of course, talking about security, I haven't seen police officers along the streets just to create some notion or something like that. There's something going to happen. So it's all peaceful here in Kisumu so far. That is as at now. Back to you, Linda.
Thank you so much for that update of what's happening in Kisumu. We'll cross over to you again, probably just before you wrap up this and find out what exactly will be happening in Kisumu. Thank you so much for your time. So in studio, we are having a conversation about what's happening revolving the IEBC. We have Jack Tuma, former ECK commissioner. Thank you for staying with us. Jared Okello-Nyando, member of parliament, and Joe Mtambo, former Mwingi Central member of parliament. So Jared, let me again rope you into this conversation. So there's a meeting that IEBC has called for tomorrow. That meeting is supposed to be attended by both Jubilee and NASA. Is NASA willing to attend that meeting?
Well, as I did say, Linda, we had obliged to that particular demand 2 weeks ago when they did write to the coalitions, or rather warring factions, to appear before them for deliberations on the conduct of the next election. So for us, we respect people, we respect institutions, and fundamentally, we respect when we are called upon to act in a particular way. It's only Jubilee that refused to turn up in good time, only to come much later to claim that they had a cabinet meeting on the same day. So for them, cabinet meetings are more fundamental than the welfare of the general public. So we do not say that we are not ready to meet with them. Yeah, we can, in a structured dialogue, not just meeting as I would walk into IEBC office and meet with them. And remember, even when we showed up 2 weeks ago, we demanded to have a session with the chair. But you know what he said? he claimed that he could not meet us because Jubilee would have a very serious problem with that. And that is a matter of fact. Later on, when William Ruto showed up, the chairman was more than willing to meet him. And actually, they did meet for a very long period of time. So that kind of segregation along political lines cannot be allowed.
So are you attending the meeting tomorrow or
well,
not?
you know, what we are saying also is that we can scale the steps as we chew the gum. The demonstrations can continue, and because they will, as we also have, not everybody is needed for that meeting, only a few of us. So let those who are going for the meeting do so under structured dialogue structure, you know. But let those who will be demonstrating like myself, and I'm ready, move on the streets.
So you're okay with the meeting tomorrow?
Well, as long as it will be a structured dialogue. Yeah, not just any meeting.
Commissioner.
My take on that is really the two groups have to do whatever is possible to hold this meeting. I agree that it has to be structured. I also agree that the only people who can now save this country from the serious problems that we're facing are two. That is the President Kenyatta and the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga. If those two can find time to sit and look at this country, forget about the pushes that they have from their lieutenants. They will come out and give us a direction, and that is where it is going to go. But if we say the lieutenants, the way I see them going to sit anywhere, Linda, we are not going to come out with anything. It is going to be, we are going to be running around the circles. And you see, the time that we are left with doesn't allow us much space. So we have to move and move fast. And my appeal again is that the two presidential candidates find time to sit, let them talk, and then they can direct their lieutenants with direction.
Okay, so let me ask you, Mheshimiwa. So if we get the two principals to sit, and if the two parties can agree, do you see a point where both parties can get to a point and agree on some of the issues that are being raised, despite the fact that Jubilee says they're very comfortable with the IEBC as is currently constituted, and they're confident that the IEBC can oversee this election? NASA, however, is not so confident. From where you sit, what is the way forward? Because we've got to move forward.
You see, the fundamental issue here is that the country or the nation is at limbo mode, pursuant to the orders given by the court. And unless these orders are complied to, unless each party comply to the orders given to the court, then we are heading to another crisis. IBC, on their part, they are supposed to organize for an election. That is what the court says. If we are law abiders, we need to respect that. The moment we come in and start sneaking in new demands, that yes, court said this, but you are not going to do this unless so and so is not there. It's like a police officer has been given a warrant of arrest. And when they come to arrest you, you tell them, you know what, you are not going to arrest me because you come from, I don't know where, you are not a police officer, or you have been mentioned somewhere, you cannot arrest me. You cannot do that.
Okay.
What we need to do at this particular moment, if we want to prove to the world and to Kenyans that we respect the rule of law, first is to obey the orders. If IBC are saying, I mean, if NASA are claiming that IBC will not conduct proper, secure,
credible,
good election, they still have the same route which they used. I do not understand why they come today before the election are held and cast aspersions that this election will not be free and fair, and we have not reached there yet.
Jared.
Yes, Gerard, my good friend here and an honorable member of parliament, and actually I did not get time to congratulate him.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Do it now.
If you are mentioned, you should not either sit or be in public office. How many of those who are eyeing to be either president or deputy or whatever of this country been mentioned? If it is the question of being mentioned of a scandal, Which bigger scandal in this country has ever been there than molasses plant, than national youth land, than golden back? We know all of them. Are we telling them we are Kenyans and we want you out of our election? We are not telling them that. Okay? IEBC, something has been mentioned, there was irregularities. Now we are holding them and we are holding the entire nation at hostage because there was that pronunciation, irregularity. It is totally unfair to this country.
Linda.
And when I say that they do not think or feel or respect this country, I was not talking about Shiloba. There is what we call multiplier effect in anything. The demonstration they are organizing, they are affecting so many other things in this country. And if you do take your toothpick and quantify what is happening in our nation, Linda, you'll be shocked.
And that is where I'd like Jared to also come in, because I remember the Deputy President said there are constitutional means of getting your way in some of these issues. You don't necessarily have to go to a protest. And that is why I want to ask if, did you exhaust all other avenues? However, for what you've just said, you remember when Chief Justice David Maraga at the Supreme Court, when he was giving that ruling, and he said, if a similar petition is brought to this court with everything as is, we will still rule the same way.
That's why I'm going. That's actually why I'm
when you
my
say
point.
when you say that the IEBC is supposed to just oversee this election, let's get there, let's get to that particular point, and we'll deal with the outcome. The Chief Justice says you bring a case like this again, we will still rule the same way. So what NASA is asking for are reforms that will ensure that you don't get back to that place.
It is not their duty. What they need to do is to go and participate in the election. And if this election is not old as per the regulations, then they go back to Maraga. Maraga is still there.
Jared.
So I'm wondering why he casting his passion before the election.
Well, first things first, Linda. It is true and it is not in dispute that Supreme Court did again give IEBC another bite at the cherry. We've got no problem with that. The same Supreme Court did not say that the same crooks who meddled with the affairs of the electoral merchandise should again conduct the same election.
Okay,
they
hold
didn't
on.
say that.
Hold on. I need you to. We'll still give you time to respond to that. But for now, allow me to take a break on News Center for just a couple of minutes. We're coming back to this discussion, and then we'll also pose that question to Jared. Was there any other way of dealing with this apart from going for protests? And we also will speak to Ambassador Jack Tuma and just find out, like, really, in terms of morale, what does this do to the officials of IEBC? You have, 29 days to the repeat poll. Stay with News Center. We'll be back.